Hello everybody, and welcome on this first Sunday of a new month, the month of February. My name is Marc Mullins, and I serve as pastor of the First Christian Church in Pendleton, Oregon. 50 Sundays have passed since my congregation was last able to safely meet for in-person worship in our church sanctuary. That's just 2 Sundays short of an entire year. And for every one of those Sundays, I've been putting together videos to help keep us connected in worship. I know that all of us look forward to the day when we can come together and meet and worship face to face, side by side, and celebrate together in person the wonderful nature of God's love and grace through Jesus Christ. In the meantime, I'll continue to produce these weekly sermon videos until such time when we can safely meet together in person again. Now, before I get into my message, I want to share something significant that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the financial support that many of you send to help keep our ministry going strong here in Pendleton. Times are tough for so many as we've endured these long months of struggle with COVID-19. There are those who have experienced the pressure of financial strain within their households, and many businesses have had to close down because of lack of funds. Even nonprofits, such as churches, have felt the pain of dwindling funds. And for this reason, I'm grateful for any financial gift you can send to keep the ministry of Pendleton's First Christian Church alive and well. May you experience God's blessings in extraordinary ways as you do whatever you can to help local businesses and faith-based ministries like ours maintain a solid footing in such challenging times as these. And now, speaking of challenge, it was exactly 1 year ago, on Friday, February 7th, that the Oregon cities of Pendleton, Stanfield, Hermiston, and La Grande experienced the impact of devastating flooding. Heavy rain and snowmelt caused significant runoff into rivers and streams, and the Umatilla, Grand Ronde, and Walla Walla rivers were among those that flooded. The flooding prompted evacuations, highway closures, and emergency declarations in eastern Oregon and southeastern Washington. Pendleton, Hermiston, and Walla Walla were among the areas that experienced significant flooding, and many were stranded, including one 62-year-old woman who was later found dead, apparently swept away by the floodwaters. Now, 2 days after that flooding occurred, on Sunday morning, February 9th, at 7:16 a.m., I received a text message from our co-regional minister, Kathy Myers-Wirt. And Kathy's message read as follows: "Praying with you today from Boise. Hoping to check in about how Week of Compassion and Regional Church can accompany you in these days. Please extend our care to the congregation. We are watching and praying with you." I called Kathy that evening at 7 p.m., and after that call, Kathy sent me the contact information for Caroline Hamilton Arnold. Caroline lives in Texas and is the Associate Director of Domestic Disaster Response for Week of Compassion. In part, Caroline works to help church leaders such as me evaluate what Week of Compassion can do to help with the needs of people in our congregations when they suffer because of tragedies. And I spoke with Caroline for over a half an hour on the phone on Monday morning, February 10th. And afterward, I called and spoke with 5 of our church families who had been badly affected by that flood. After speaking with each of these families, I called Caroline once again. And within just a few short hours, Caroline called me back with the news that Week of Compassion would send funds to help these 5 families in their time of need. Now, when I recall that series of events just 1 year ago from today, I think back on the words of Jesus as they are recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 25 through 40. Here are those words, and I quote, "I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Now, as a side note, Jesus well could have added, "I was in a flood, and you rescued me." Continuing on with the scripture in verse 37. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? And as another side note, I could add, when did we see you in a flood and rescue you? And in verse 40, Jesus said, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Now going back to that event of 1 year ago, as quickly as the floodwaters began to recede after that flood, Week of Compassion rose to the occasion to provide assistance. Week of Compassion's gifts to those 5 families in my congregation were possible because of people like you and me who give annually to support the work of Week of Compassion both locally as well as worldwide. Within months after those of us in northeastern Oregon were impacted by that devastating flood, Oregon and many other western states were severely affected by another disaster. You may recall wildfires raged out of control. An historic number of fires burned more than 1 million acres of Oregon land, and parts of Oregon at that time encountered the worst air quality in the whole world. Hundreds of thousands of people were under evacuation orders, including more than 100 member households of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. In the midst of those out-of-control fires, churches worked tirelessly to serve their neighbors. Congregations in Oregon worked with other leaders and relief organizations to identify specific needs in their areas. And in partnership with our regional church office in Portland, Oregon, Week of Compassion gave financial support to disciple congregations as they served their wider communities. This response by Week of Compassion, through local churches, allowed assistance to reach even further than otherwise could have been possible. And I want to thank each and every one of you who have ever given a financial gift to Week of Compassion. Your gift blessed people within my own church family, right here in Pendleton, Oregon, as well as many others throughout Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, and more states. Now, in a few moments, I'm going to share with you a brief video clip. But before I do, I want you to know that Week of Compassion is the Relief, Refugee, and Development Mission Fund of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. For more than 70 years, Week of Compassion has served to equip and empower disciples to alleviate the suffering of others through disaster response, humanitarian aid, sustainable development, and the promotion of mission opportunities. For over 7 decades, Week of Compassion has been assisting people who have been afflicted by tragedies throughout the world. So in addition to your usual tithe or offering for our congregation's general ministry fund, if you'd be so kind as to give an additional contribution for this month's Week of Compassion special offering, you may do so by going directly online to the address shown here on the screen. Or you may send your contribution by check, made payable to First Christian Church, identified in the memo line for Week of Compassion. And checks may be sent to the church office at the address shown on the screen. And if you'd like to make a gift using debit or credit card, go to our church webpage, the address is also shown here on the screen, and click on the green Give button. And I'd like to thank you. Sincerely, I thank you. And now, in closing this message, I'd like you to watch a short 3-minute video clip.
It's been a difficult year. Tornadoes, wildfires, an unprecedented number of hurricanes, forced migration all around the globe, refugee camps full to overflowing. And then, on top of all of that, a global pandemic. broken economies, skyrocketing unemployment, social isolation, loved ones dying alone. It's been a difficult year, full of obstacles that seem designed to stop love in its tracks. But the truth is, this kind of moment is what the church is born for. In this kind of moment, the church steps up so God's love can flow and reach those who need it most. And the truth is, you have done exactly that. All year long, your compassion has been at work, letting love flow. Even now, your compassion is providing storm relief in Texas. Your compassion is distributing food and hygiene supplies to refugees in Egypt. Your compassion is assisting families experiencing income loss in Cambodia, keeping young girls in school, and helping with COVID relief efforts in our neighborhoods and all around the world. It's been a difficult year, but your compassion, God's compassion, is making the words of Isaiah become a reality. Nobody hungry, nobody thirsty, shade from the sun, shelter from the wind, for the compassionate one guides them, takes them to the best springs. Your compassion, your ongoing generosity is letting love flow.